What does the Amazon Alexa, the Amazon Fire TV, Beats Music, and let me see if I can find one more that kind of sticks out to me. Let's say the iPad Mini 3 and the iPhone iOS 8 update and the Drive and Dish NBA podcast have in common?
I don't know, Justin. What do they have in common?
They all started the same year,
They did.
10 years ago.
10 years of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast is right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to I don't have an air horn or anything. I don't have a fun-flex bomb drop. Like
I might hold on. We might. Oh well, I don't know if I can find one real quick.
Wait, I might have one on the app. Hang on. I actually really think I have one.
Baseball air horn.
Yes.
I think I have
it.
Oh
wait, I got to re-update it. Hang on. So, this is the best. And for 10 years, this is actually kind of the perfect intro. Wow, that updated really fast.
Here we go. Ready?
Okay, not bad. That's the big rig. So here, let's see this. I'm doing this on the mic, so my apologies. This is really loud. Let's see how this goes.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one you want.
Listen, you see it. Yeah, 10 years of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, how do you recap the last decade of our lives?
By the way, just to put it in, remember when everyone was playing Crossy Roads? It was essentially Frogger, but like different little animals.
No, but sure.
It was a big app game, dude. It came out in 2014.
Yeah, and so before we do all the thank yous and actually talk about the podcast for a little bit, we are going to take a look back here at the last 10 years and what has happened in the NBA in that time. For that season, obviously the big story, as I'm pulling up the season review here, the biggest story was the Spurs coming back from the year before. Coming off a devastating finals loss. I mean, really, probably as hard of a finals loss as you can take, given the way, the Ray Allen shot, game 7, Tim Duncan missing that shot late, LeBron hitting the clutch jumper to, end up winning the Heat in 7, their, second championship in a row. The Spurs come back the following year, dominant fashion, and end up winning the title. Tim Duncan's 5th title, Tony Parker, Ginobili, another ring for them. Kawhi Leonard's first.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that was kind of, that particular season with the defense that he played on LeBron. That was really his, national coming out party. But yeah, that was, probably the biggest story there. The playoffs in general, the first round that year, Indy defeated Atlanta in 7. Washington beat the Bulls in 5. Brooklyn defeated Toronto in 7. Miami beat Charlotte in 4. In the West, the Spurs
was this before or after the D Rose injury, or was this no? Because that happened against the Sixers.
That was before
the year before.
The first tear was the year before.
Okay.
And then this season this year was the first year that he was back. 2013 was the year he was supposed to be back.
It was back.
And then obviously ended up getting hurt again. So that's kind of this was the year where, the tragedy element of Derrick Rose's career started to play in here a little bit. What's crazy though is about the Spurs that year too. They in the first round, they went to 7. Their series with Dallas went 7.
That's right.
The Blazers defeated the Rockets 4-1. The Clippers beat the Warriors 4-3. That was a great series. I don't know if you remember that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Thunder defeated the Grizzlies in 7 as well.
Was that the last year of those 3 in Clippers territory? When did the DeAndre Jordan in Texas lock his doors?
That was a few years. That was 17.
Okay.
When Paul Pierce was tweeting the old school emoji, literally the picture of the emoji.
Yeah.
Second round, the Pacers beat the Wizards 4-2. The Heat beat the Nets 4-1. In the West, the Spurs beat the Blazers 4-1. The Thunder beat the Clippers in 6. ECF, Heat defeated the Pacers 4-2. Obviously, that was a big story too the year before, and there the continued rivalry between LeBron and then those indie teams: Paul George, Roy Hibbert, George Hill, Lance Stevenson, David West, and crew. And then the Spurs defeating the Heat in 5 games it wasn't really close after the first two of that series. Like the Spurs won game one, the Heat won game two, and then the Spurs just absolutely blew the doors off the Heat. Obviously, too, this is LeBron's last year in Miami. Kind of with this ending, he went back to Cleveland, so that was a one of the bigger early storylines that we covered in the Drive and Dish NBA podcast.
I have the coaches survey from the 2013-2014 season before it started, right? It was like, I guess it must have been right after the draft because some of these questions are kind of draft related.
Here, let me run through before we run through that because I want to see how they all aged. Let me finish the awards here real quick.
Okay.
And the season leaders. So the season leaders, points wise, was KD. He had 32 a game.
OKC, right?
With OKC still. Assists was Chris Paul, 10.7. Rebounds, DeAndre Jordan, who you just mentioned a little bit ago, 13.6. Steals was Chris Paul. Blocks was Anthony Davis. Field goal percentage, DeAndre Jordan. Free throw percentage. Bet you will not get this one. Couldn't even imagine guessing this on grids. How about Brian Roberts with the New Orleans Pelicans? 94% that year. Free throw percentage. Kyle Korver with the Hawks, your leader in 3-point percentage. The award winners that year, MVP was KD. That was, of course, the emotional speech to his mom, "You the real MVP." Rookie of the year, our boy Michael Carter Williams on the process Sixers going crazy. I remember he won that in May. It was Cinco de Michael is what they were calling it. So it was a lot of fun.
Dude, I still go back and think of his triple-double against the Heat, like third game into the season. Dude. And we were like, it's happening. This is it. It's time.
Yeah, dude, I was so hyped. I remember where I watched that game. It was crazy. And that was, again, shortly after I'd moved to Jacksonville. So, a lot of fun there. Defensive player of the year, Joakim Noah with the Bulls. Most improved player, your boy, Goran Dragic with the Suns. Sixth man of the year, Jamal Crawford with the Clippers. Coach of the year, Pop. All-Star game MVP was Kyrie Irving, and the finals MVP, of course, was Kawhi Leonard. Like we said, his national breakout there. But yeah, hit me. What do we got with this? What do we got with this GM survey? I'm assuming a lot of like pro Heat propaganda. Yeah, well, not really propaganda. I guess they're back-to-back champs.
But yes,
like
literally the first three are LeBron James as the most voted for player in the categories. Number one is who will be the MVP. It was between him and Kevin Durant, but LeBron got 69% of the vote. And the other players that received votes were Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul. LeBron James the year before got also voted as the most likely to win MVP. If you were starting a franchise today, could sign any player, which one would it be? Top three. Number one was LeBron. Number two was Kevin Durant. Number three was Kyrie Irving. It's kind of interesting because all three of those guys have moved around quite a bit. Which player forces opposing coaches to adjust the most was LeBron and KD again, and then Chris Paul. Also receiving votes was Curry, Tony Parker, and Derrick Rose.
Curry was coming. They were on to something with Curry. They were getting there. They knew what was coming.
They knew something was happening there.
It's players. Crazy. My bad.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
No, the next one was players to most likely have a breakout season. Anthony Davis actually got the number one vote. Andre Drummond got the number two vote. Tied for third was three. Derek Favors, who I know, at least in the podcast world for us, was brought up quite a bit. Paul George and Reggie Jackson, actually. Reggie, another one they kind of like were starting to catch on. Yeah.
Reggie, super early.
And then so I think was 14 when Harden went to Houston. Because that might have been why people voted for him to be.
I think so, yeah.
Because he's OKC, so like that might have been like, oh, now it's clear for him to go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first year of him in Houston. Which, yeah, that is actually one of the. That's a good point, Just. That's one of the bigger stories in the NBA that year, no doubt.
Yeah, and then who will win the 2013-2014 Rookie of the Year? Victor Oladipo had the most votes, and Cody Zeller had number two. Also receiving votes, Anthony Bennett, CJ McCollum, and Andre Roberson, who is another one that we would bring up a ton in this podcast.
Our boy. Other things that happened that year that, well, I mean, one that was not glamorous was, of course, the whole Donald Sterling situation that year.
Was that year?
Yeah, his tapes came out. Obviously, he was forced out
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer's owned the team since, which I think everybody who is a Clippers fan is super happy about.
Yeah, probably happy with.
This was Dwight Howard's first season in Houston as well. Obviously
Yep.
a huge signing there coming off the Lakers, which
He
I know
was
that the first Lakers tenure was a little bit mixed, but
in this survey, he was named as the best defensive player in the NBA.
yeah.
It was him, LeBron, Tony Allen, and Andre Iguodala.
Tony Allen, first team all defense. Love to see it.
Mhm.
It's funny because, you mentioned, and I think really up until, I mean, what, 1-2 years ago, I probably believe that LeBron was the best player in the NBA. I think many, many people over the course of, those next years that when they were going to the finals every year would argue that he was the best player.
Yeah.
Yet the entire time we have done this podcast, LeBron has never won MVP, not a single season.
That's wild. I didn't even
All of
realize
his
that.
MVPs
Yeah.
are early. MVPs since we've done the podcast, KD first, who we mentioned, of course, in 2013, 2014. Steph then won it back-to-back years. Then you got Russ, the triple-double year,
Yep.
first one post-KD.
Which was
Harden.
a very controversial year for I remember we had a lot of good debates, you,
Yeah.
me, and Tim, and you and Tim especially talking about, stat chasing, empty stats, and the triple-double stat and how you kinda, I guess, value it compared to other things that are happening with teams, including, like, team wins.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, even Harden got one in 2017, 2018, but he was a guy who was floated for a while, and
Yeah.
it really had pretty thorough arguments to win it a few years.
Yeah.
But he did win it that year. Giannis won it back to back in 2018 and 2019. Of course, Jokic won back to back, and then Joel went in last year. Which, I mean, for us, like, obviously this has occurred over the course of the process too. If we put the Homer hat on,
Mhm.
sort of went the way we wanted. Like, they've been way more
So
competitive, and we have Joel Embiid, who obviously has won the MVP in our tenure. I think there's
what
been a lot of, like, I'm not going to describe it the way I want to, but just behind the scenes shenanigans, to say the least, which is kind of let's say stunted what I think we hoped this would be a little bit.
Let me ask you this. In terms of NBA, because there's one last coach survey thing I want to bring up, but in terms of NBA news, out of all the seasons we've done it, is there one that like really sticks with you? Because there's one that I remember that is just the most insane story that we covered. And I'll bring it up here in a second, but I want to see
Wow.
if one pops in your mind.
I mean, you mentioned DeAndre Jordan with him being
Yeah, that's a weird
quote
one.
unquote hostage. That was incredible.
Jimmy Butler fighting the entire Timberwolves team at
Jimmy
practice.
Butler, yeah, Jimmy Butler practice was legendary. That was a legendary podcast for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite rant ever was when the Sixers traded Nerlens Noel and got a heavy protected first rounder, but tried to sell to everybody that it was a first rounder. Like, I was, and shout out to our guys, Warren Shaw and Cal Lee, who I'll mention again in a little bit, but they were on that podcast with us. And I just remember Shaw going, I'm not even trying to stop this freight train. Kev, you got it. Go ahead. And I
hope those guys are good. We haven't talked to them in a minute.
I do. We need to link up with them.
Keith,
I've chatted with them on social a little bit, of course, but
Keith too.
Keith Smith.
Yeah, Keith Smith. Yeah, we gotta.
I
chat with
got
him.
some shout outs. We'll get there in a little
Okay,
bit. Too, don't
okay.
worry. But
hold on. I want to do one because I still got my story, but it kind of ties into this last question that they asked the coaches. Which was, which active player do you think will make the best head coach someday?
Oh boy, in 2013, I don't think it was Kobe.
Three of them became coaches.
Well, was one Jason Kidd?
No, not Jason Kidd's not on here. I don't know. Actually,
Steve
maybe only
Nash.
Nash is on there.
Okay.
He was on the Lakers at this point.
Yep.
Derek Fisher.
Okay.
For OKC at this point.
Yeah, and he coached.
Yep. Shane Battier came in at number 3. I don't think he's coached, has he?
Not at NBA level.
Okay.
I don't know if he's coaching somewhere else. I'll have to look that up.
Chris Paul came in at number 2, again, still
Yep.
playing, and Chauncey Billups came in at number 1.
Yeah, that is not surprising, and I mean, it's been a little bit of a mixed tenure so far in Portland for Chauncey, but it's not surprising that he eventually got those. Like, he was well,
Yeah.
well into his career, already a champion at that point, super respected.
Now, the story that sticks with me the most
Okay.
has to do with Derek Fisher.
Oh, it's him fighting Matt Barnes. Yeah, of course, dude. Oh, I promise I'm getting there too.
Matt Barnes driving. Where
Yep.
was it? From Philly?
No, it wasn't from Philly.
Was it from? It was no, it was
Cali
like
somewhere.
No, he drove from like Washington, D.C. to like New York or something.
I think you're completely wrong geography-wise.
Are you
But
sure?
you're not. The greater point is that you're right. He drove like 90 miles to go fight Derek
Yes.
Fisher, and just like my favorite, because you're right. I remember this vividly, and we just talked about like, what do you have on your playlist to be
What
fired up for
music are
90
you-
minutes to go fight somebody? Because I
What
feel like
music?
that's what like it always came down to, where it's like, yo, I'm 45 minutes into that drive and I'm probably calm and don't want to
Dude,
fight
I'm
anymore.
telling
Like, I
you,
want to go home. I had to get a
I'm-
bag of combos at a gas station somewhere.
We're in that car and Disturbed Down with the Sickness is going on, and I'm driving, and it goes into another, like a Pierce the Veil. Like, I'm pissed off. And then that Hootie and the Blowfish song comes on, and I'm like, you know what? I should turn around.
It'll be, or just be in real sicko mode. Like, shuffle mode goes to like Sade or something. It's like the most like, pure R&B of all time.
Yeah, like no, we would not make that drive just to get into an altercation.
That for sure, headlines wise, is one of the funniest things of all time. I'm pretty sure Matt Barnes has addressed that on All the Smoke, and they've made up since then, which is good because like there's kids involved. Like, we always root for happiness. Like, they don't need to be fighting like that. But
I mean,
that headline was incredible when it happened.
90% of the time I root for happiness, and this was one of those times. Yes.
Yeah. Let's finals wise. So, teams that have won titles since we've done the podcast: the Spurs, the Warriors, of course, have 4 in the time, the most successful. The Cavs with LeBron in 2016. That was, in my opinion, probably the most memorable finals that we've covered.
Which I called. Remember that?
You did. You called. That's your greatest prediction. My greatest prediction was our preseason in 2015. I said the Warriors have a really good shot of winning the title. I'm proud of that. I remember that one stuck with me. The Raptors in 2019, the Lakers, of course, in the bubble, the Bucks, the Nuggets winning their first championship last year. A few other teams have been there, didn't get over. The Suns were in a finals. Who else are we missing that were in finals? And the Celtics were in a finals and lost. The Heat, low key, the Heat have been really successful since we've been doing this podcast, but their only championship success came before us. They're 0-3 in the finals since we started this podcast. So maybe one day when we stop, that'll be good news for Miami. But I don't know. 2 with Jimmy, of course, the last year that we talked about with LeBron and the big 3.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually been talking a little bit on Haslam's podcast. They've been talking about Chris Bosh, and the headline was, and I'm a big Chris Bosh guy. I think he's one of the most underrated players in NBA history. And that's kind of the point, is where they're like, hey, if LeBron or D Wade got hurt, like, we could kind of replace them with each other on those squads. Bosh was invaluable. And obviously, I don't think saying anyone is more valuable than LeBron at that time is kind of wild. But Chris Bosh, in terms of role, I absolutely say that all the time. And he sacrificed a ton on those teams.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, he's one of the more, if not the most underrated player over the course of this pod.
It always seems like what ends up happening whenever like a big 3 is created, there's always one player that kind of has to try to take, I guess the word's a backseat, but it's more like do the non-number specific things for the team. I feel like Kevin Love did that in Cleveland.
Definitely.
Chris Bosh did that in Miami. Like, those are those examples where like in the coaches poll, right? In the 13-14 season, they said who's the best offensive player and player that makes the most out of their limited athletic abilities, and Kevin Love was number 1 on both of those, which is
That's
such like a
that's like the
douche.
rudest comment of
Yeah,
all time.
as such a backhanded
Is
compliment.
that code for saying who's the best white player? Because that's what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, the rest of the
Luka's
guys
winning that award every year from now on.
the rest of the guys on that list, by the way, very interesting because I don't recall like Zach Randolph's number 2. Kenneth Farid's number 3, and I remember him being like a freak athletically.
I was gonna say Farid was a good athlete. He couldn't
Yeah.
shoot the ball,
Dude
but it
just
wasn't
straight
like
up dunked it all the time. And then
Randolph a little bit more, where Randolph was just like a
he's a big
unit, man.
dude.
He just got in
Yeah.
spots and just dominated the boards.
Reggie Evans was on that list too. So like
I
to
mean,
me,
again, he was another elite rebounder. Like Reggie Evans is
right.
one of those, his limit was that he was only really good at one thing, but man, he was a good rebounder.
But to me, I don't know if you're gonna talk about player with like the best ability. Like to me, it's like you go with like an Isaiah Thomas or like a Nate Burleson, where like they're
Yeah.
so small that like they have to work so much harder just to get a shot. But either way, back to
Shout
the
out to IT, by the way. He was hooping in the G League. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
that. He scored 32 in his first game back.
Yeah.
That was just good to see him hooping again. I know
Yeah.
he's going through a lot the past few years, and obviously he had a great few years with Boston. I mean, he was getting them into second rounds, and
Mhm.
his story, the fighting through the adversity. Just the sadness of his sister died in the car accident, and then you saw the emotion
It was
during
a
that finals game
yeah.
and how him going out and hooping. Like that's one of the other more memorable, like just performances that stick with you. Like he really that was a tough performance, and he showed out.
I also found from The Guardian, it's like a season preview of that season,
Uh-huh.
and they have X factors on each player's team. And for the Knicks, just because they're the first team that popped up, X factor is Iman Shumpert. If 21 Shump Street doesn't get traded, if he keeps the fade, he's close to a lock at becoming the Knicks cult figure going forward for years to come.
Yeah,
Which I mean, he
they
pretty much did.
Yeah, they loved him in the Garden for sure. And then obviously he was a big part of a trade. Him and JR going to Cleveland and helping them get over the top that year.
Let's see if
I'm
any
trying
other
to think of
players
like a
stick
most
out.
memorable trade, but there's been so many. I mean, there have been so many just out of bounds. I can't believe this is happening type deal. Where you just, I mean, Paul George going to OKC, Kawhi the night that he went to decide to go to the Clippers was really wild on here. I mean, you name it. Like, and that's like, there's been like 3 Jimmy Butler trades. Obviously, LeBron going to the Lakers when he was making that decision. LeBron going home was one of the biggest storylines. And of course, immediately everyone's starting to make Kevin Love trades right away and firing that up.
I still think most memorable. It's not a trade, but I'm just again I'm popping down this list of X factors on teams and stuff, and just past the Pacers, and Danny Granger is the X factor on their team. And it said incorporate him back into the lineup when he's healthy, which made me think of Paul George's injury, which was grotesque.
Gross, dude. I remember we were out. Like it was you, me, and Tim.
Yeah.
And I remember going home and watching the scrimmage. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll catch the end of this. And Paul George went down, and I was like, that looked kind of bad. And then they showed the replay because I don't think the commentators realized it. And they showed the replay, and me and the commentators seeing that for the first time at the same reaction were just like, you just yelled in horror, kind of. It was like, that was, I mean, that and the other just, I think where you just were floored by the injury and how it happened was Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward had, going to Boston, ton of hype with him and Isaiah Thomas. Game 1, he goes down and just like, oh, that was nasty.
Yeah.
Obviously the biggest tragedy over the podcast. Tell me the funny thing before I mention the biggest tragedy.
And so I'm just, I didn't mean to laugh at the tragedy. I'm reading. So the X factor that they have for this season for the Orlando Magic is Glenn Big Baby Davis. And the comment is, wait, is he still with Orlando?
I love, dude, him and Vooch won a Thanksgiving game. And there's a, like an image of them like eating the post-game Thanksgiving turkey spread that they brought out. That's one of the funnier ones.
I forgot we had a whole team name change. Like when we started, it was the Charlotte Bobcats, wasn't it?
Yep,
Yeah.
Bobcats, and then the Hornets going back. Yeah, obviously the
Yeah.
Pelicans changing to New Orleans, which was smart. I like the Hornets being in Charlotte, and I like New Orleans just going with their own new name. You really want to start over. I like the identity change. Um, the biggest tragedy going back to that was Kobe. I was just going to mention Kobe passing.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
still is. I mean, there aren't many moments in life where I just kind of stopped everything I was doing and was like, "Yo, I need a minute." That was one of them. Like my buddy Mike texted me and I was in the gym. Like Amber and I were working out and
Mhm.
I just got the text. He's like, "Yo, did you see this Kobe pass?" And I almost wanted to, I borderline almost texted him back. And I went, did you really text me with this BS? Like, are we kidding?
Mhm.
And then I went on Twitter and it was not kidding.
No.
There were the preliminary reports that started to come out, and I just looked at Amber and I was like, I gotta go. Like I left the gym and I just went. I think I walked around the apartment complex and just was kind of like, what? I didn't know what to do. And it's still like that. That's really hard to kind of wrap your head around, and just the
Yeah.
tragedy of it too. Obviously, with his daughter and all the other young girls that were killed in that crash.
Yep.
Um,
I remember I was out at for anybody that lives in the Jacksonville area, I was out at Bricks
yeah,
and we were just hanging out and next thing you know across the TV screen I'm like, "Wait, what is going on?" And
yeah,
all my friends at that point are like, "Don't you do a podcast? You probably have to go." And I'm like, "I'm going to go anyway. Like I just need to go." And so, you know, that's
yeah.
what we did.
I think, shock was the only adequate way to describe that. But obviously we've, this is a happy episode. This has been 10 of the most fun years of our life. I always joke, I say that Justin is my second longest relationship right now, but like I've got two relationships that are double digits. Um, this was an idea that just kind of came to us one night. We decided to go with it and see how far it went.
In
And the
that
fact that we've
practice.
been doing this for 10 years now and that, you know, eh, this is as much I say all the time that we love doing this as hopefully as much as y'all love listening to it. This has been, an outlet for us. And in a way, I mean, we talk about everything that's happened in basketball. I mean, look at everything that's happened. I mean, Justin and I were 23 years old when we started this podcast. Like, Justin's married and has an almost 1-year old now. Like, he bought a house. Like, I moved twice. I switched careers. I'm back in law school. Like, this has, like, to put it bluntly, like, y'all have grown up with us. Like, this is,
Mhm.
I coming back those nights in Jack's Beach and, coming to do the podcast on Saturdays. Like, I remember how much fun that was and how
Yeah.
much I look for. Like, we were going into work on our days off and
Mhm.
going to just record. And I loved and when it started, I remember I couldn't believe that anyone listened to us. And the fact that y'all have locked in for 10 years and,
Not even that,
driven
at
us to
one
keep
point
going.
was able to fund us a trip to Vegas for Summer League,
Yeah, like we
of
are.
all things.
I mean, we have made, and just beyond that, the connections we've made with just across the world. I mean, I joke, and I want to give a special shout out too to our Aussie conglomerate. We say that all the time that we took off early there. Outside of America, Australia has just
Yeah.
really been a solid base for us. But especially in
And a
particular, I want to shout out to our two guys, Stuart O'Kell and Andrew Morgan, who have been, day one in the trenches with us. And being down there, that's the best part of this, right? Like, I mean, I know you feel the same. Like, I consider them as friends now. Like, they're, forget the podcast. Like, they're our real friends. Like, whenever, obviously, it's unfortunately a little hard to get to Australia via plane, but when the day comes when I go down there, like, I really look forward to meeting them and linking up. Like, that's the beauty of this show. We made so many great friends and everybody who's ever commented or liked one of our tweets or left a review on iTunes or argued with
good
us.
or bad.
Like, yeah, like I've had people argue with us and I love it if it's a good, healthy debate. Like, it's fun. Like, that's what this is supposed to be. And it's been such a blessing to do this for 10 years. And just, be able to again make this such a part. Like, this has been a part of my weekend routine. I can't imagine having not done this. And again, I just a few special shout outs early, or for some of the people that were there early. You mentioned them earlier, Cowley and Warren Shaw from the Baseline podcast. Those are our
Yeah.
guys. Joe Cardozo and the Nuts and Bolts Sports crew have always been huge supporters of us. I appreciate that. Our guy Keith Smith, love the glow up, man.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, you're on fire. We're so happy to see all the success you've had in this basketball world with Celtics blog and with doing the Spotrac sheets. Like, I remember when you were sending us your Excel spreadsheets, and it's so cool to see that you're just national stature take off like that. Our guy Justin Rowan, who was over at Fear of the Sword, he was one of our big early guests who came on, really supported us.
Joe Molinax
too, big time. Grizzly Bear Blues, definitely it's been a friend of the podcast, early supporter. We appreciate that. Rest in peace to Dave King, man. Dave King with Bright Side of the Sun. That was sad a few months ago to hear that. And him and Tim did the solar panel for a while.
Once Tim left with us, that was his big thing, was the Sun solar panel.
So
because he was, and admittedly, Tim was a diehard Suns fan, and he always wanted to go. Like when we cover the NBA, because we're covering it at a at a wide eagle-eyed view look, we don't have to go into the X's and O's as much. But he always wanted to. You could tell when we would have those conversations, he wanted to dig even deeper than maybe we were able to at that point. And it was just I mean, does somebody who's listening for a NBA entertainment full view look thing really want us to talk about the rotations of said player on the Grizzlies? Probably not. But if you want to get serious or specific, that's when you drill down to those team specific podcasts. And that's why I think he made that leap.
Well, I have I want to shout out to Cole Zwicker too. I know he's not doing pods anymore, but man, he was so great every time on our draft episodes. And he's actually he works for an NBA team now, doing scouting and such. So
why didn't we wait, hold on. How do we have all these connections of people that have gotten so freaking successful?
Are you saying we're not successful?
I'm just saying I'm in the same building that we were in 10 years ago. We started this thing.
You got management stripes now. I mean, technically it's not the same building. They did move across town a little bit, but no, my last, I have 3 shout outs left, and they're probably the most important ones. A shout out, of course, because we mentioned him, to Tim, Tim Tompkins, who did this for the first 4 years.
He quite literally started it. He was the guy.
Tim pitched the idea. And I didn't know you at the time. Tim met you at the weekends at CMG Jacksonville, and I was working with Tim during the week because Tim was doing traffic and I was doing news. And he pitched the idea to me after we had lost the Jags contract at the time, and so I wasn't doing as much sports anymore. And I decided to just roll with it and see how it went. And obviously, here we are 10 years later. I mean, obviously, Tim hasn't, Tim did the first, I guess it was 4.5 years of the show with us. But yeah, Tim is, I mean, he was at Summer League with us, and all that aside, Tim was one of my best friends in Jacksonville, and I will always have love for Tim. I'm disappointed. I was supposed to meet up with him a few weeks ago, finally. He was up north, because obviously I don't live in Florida anymore, as people know that. I live back in the Philadelphia area.
A 215.
Yeah. But unfortunately we didn't link up, but I will always love, I will always have love for Tim, and Tim deserves a ton of credit for anywhere that this show has gone, and will always get that in my eyes.
And he was putting a ton of side work into it with Google SEO and all that stuff too. So
that's his job now. He basically turned it into a career.
Well, and not only that, it's since you can tell, you go back and look at her numbers, you can tell when the Google SEO stopped. It was oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah, he's for sure putting the work in.
Good for him.
Shout out number 2, of course, goes to Nicole and Amber, our respective wife and fiance, who continue to just not think it's weird when we just dip out for a weekend every hour and change to record the podcast, and have always been supportive of this, and have just not.
This podcast almost got me in trouble with my wife when we started dating, because when we started, I didn't know Nicole. And I guess allegedly, there is an episode out there where we had talked about how I met her, and I acted like I didn't want to date her on the podcast. And her brother found out I did a podcast and listened and heard it
Wow.
and told her. And
He's
dude,
not over.
yeah,
He's not over his sister. He's a good brother.
yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for that. I claim I don't think it happened. I don't know what she's talking about, but apparently there is an alleged episode out there that I said that.
It's so hey, listen, pull the tape. Pull the tape, or
Yeah.
it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So either way, it was a good time. And it is
No,
a good time.
it's always a great time. And of course, the last shout out goes to you, Justin. Come on. Like, I wouldn't want this podcast, like, and it's something that I want to emphasize to listeners. I really love Justin. Justin is one of my favorite people on earth. And I think that's why this works, is because like they're like we check in with each other. It's nice with Justin because I check in with him every week. Like that's part of the beauty of doing the podcast is that it allows us to stay abreast on each other's lives and be up with each other and to just like you don't do a 10-year podcast without like liking the person that you're doing it with, to put it bluntly.
Right, literally.
This is a hobby. I wish it could be a full-time job one time, but it's not right now. And I think that's I'm a big proponent of giving people their flowers. And Justin, this doesn't happen with Justin for 10 years. And I mean, especially early on, all the production work you were putting in, just making it sound so good behind the scenes. Cause I think that's one of the big reasons we stood out early on, is that our production is clean. Like we had beautiful professional mics, as you can see on the stream there right now, if you're watching on YouTube. So, this is just, we are so grateful is really all I can say.
No, I agree. It's even when you're having a bad week, it's one of the highlights that you can look forward to and not turn the brain off, because obviously you're talking basketball, but switch the brain to only basketball, which is nice too. And obviously there have been tons and tons of hurdles in schedule changes that we've had to figure out with, like me having a child changes a lot of things, and you going to school changes. Like we had to figure them out, and we just kind of make those adjustments and keep strolling along. So if you've been sticking with us, we appreciate that.
Yeah. If you ever download, like we mentioned with Katie earlier, you are the real MVP. If you've ever downloaded this podcast, streamed it, watched it, if you watched one episode, if this is your first episode, if you've been here for all 700, 800 plus probably at this point, then, we truly, truly appreciate you, because like I said, this is one of our favorite things to do. And on that note, 10th year, welcome everybody to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host, Justin Kuzart.
Cybertruck ?
Oh, who's buying the Cybertruck? Who's doing this?
Gary Payton II.
Okay. I mean, look, here's the thing. I go back and forth because like I'm super pro electric vehicle. Like I will never knock the benefits of an electric vehicle. I don't get the appeal of the Cybertruck. Like I know some people are into that futuristic aesthetic thing. I don't get it. It's not for me.
It's the same people that like those big clown red shoes.
Oh, the mischief boots. Oh, dude, that week was crazy.
Yeah,
that was one of the funniest weeks on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah.
But I just like, and here's the other thing. Like, and again, this is the opinion of me. I am super pro Tesla. I'm trying to separate where I'm at with Elon right now. Like, that's getting increasingly complicated to do.
Sure.
But obviously, I think Tesla's mission overall is good. I don't know. Like I don't think I'd want to buy a Cybertruck, but I would definitely buy a Model Y, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. We've got a few guys in our neighborhood now that have Teslas, and they look fine. They seem nice. When those things are backing up, they make a sound that I assume a UFO abducting children would sound like.
I think you customize them.
It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, it's like that little orb's going to come over me, and there's going to be like a boom, and then I'm just going to get sucked up. That's literally what it sounds like. And every time I'm just like, that is not a serious noise that a car should make. Like, it's not serious. But I do want one. I do. They just opened up a Tesla place pretty close to where I live, and I have to drive past it every day now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole ask me in a few months about electric vehicles when my one paper comes out, because I've been
Okay.
quietly working on something about
Okay.
electric vehicles. So I'll have a lot of we can have a whole separate podcast about the ins and outs and the goods and bad of electric vehicles.
Okay.
As one would expect, there's a lot of nuance to it that we don't really have time for, but they're definitely cool. Like, there's no way
Yeah.
around it. Like, the Tesla vehicles overall, because just tech wise, like the self driving stuff, eventually, especially once they get it down, is crazy. Their display drive, like their 3D display, how it like projects the area around you. You know what I mean? Like the map is really crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, that's neither here nor there. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
And like we said, we're on YouTube. That one has not been there for 10 years, but you can still subscribe to it. There's a video version of all the stuff. We're going to hopefully be able to fit in Immaculate Grid here. And we'll have that going as well. You can subscribe and you'll know when the next episode is coming out.
And now a word from our sponsors.
So we have two injuries to kind of get into. Both number one draft picks, back-to-back years, if I have that right, 15,
Yep.
16. Yeah. Ben Simmons and Karl Anthony Towns injury. One more, I guess, surprising than the other. Do you want to start with the Ben one just to get it out of the way? Like, I don't really know. There's not much to say other than it's a back injury. He's out for the season, and it's like, well, here we are again.
Well, yeah, I guess if you're starting with Ben Simmons before Towns, it's really, again, he's due $40 million next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all clearly know it hasn't been a max player over the last few years. I think the most he's played is 62 games. I'm at the point now, and again, you know us, Homer had on, we've been Sixers fans. We've had plenty of Ben Simmons slander over the years. I don't even have any more at this point. I am truly mystified at how bad the Ben Simmons situation has gotten. Like, he is not going to be, he's not going to be in the league in a year.
Yeah.
This guy was getting MVP votes at one point. Like, he was arguably the best defensive player in the league. He was, I mean, even go back to that Hawks series where the wagon really fell out, if you will, or the bottom fell out. Like, when all the missed free throws, the passed up dunk, like, we don't need to rewrite that.
Right.
Even in that series in game 3, he played one of the best games of his career. Like, that was to put the Sixers up 2-1 when everyone was kind of looking at them with a target on their back. It looked like he had turned the corner. And you're at a point now where, I mean, you know, given how it played out, the Harden trade is miserable. I think there's really nothing you could do there. And I still think the Nets didn't make a mistake necessarily trying to get Ben Simmons and rehab him. It is just like, I don't know. I hope he has plans for what's next, because I think it's over NBA wise. And we're talking minimum contracts at the most after the next year. But it's like, how can you have faith in him to be an NBA player at this point? Like, he hasn't played games. He's been coming off the bench. Like, it's just total, like, I guess what's the opposite of evolution? Like, devolution into this just non-NBA player. It is one of the more mystifying things I have seen, I guess, in the 10 years of doing this podcast. Like, you look at all the potential he had, and for him not to just be able to be on the floor anymore, it's actually remarkable.
In terms of games played for the 2016 draft class, Ben Simmons is 16th on that list now. Obviously, a lot of the guys above him are smaller names than what Ben Simmons was.
Yeah.
He honestly has barely more games than Chris Dunn, who, you know, is another player. He was taken 5th in that draft and had some injury concerns as well. So, like, you know, there's a little bit of that involved. But man, oh man, I was telling you off the mic, you know, the new season of Full Swing is out, which is golf. But if you like the behind the scenes documentary style of sports stuff, you'd probably enjoy this, especially with all the live stuff that's going on with them. And there's a lot of that, but there's specifically a player, and I won't give away too much, but in the first season, he's kind of like the darling of the show. He's a guy who's like kind of a no-name guy, and he's like, look, someone's got to be the 70th best player in golf ever. Might as well be me. Let me just collect my check and do my thing. Well, he gets very popular from season 1 to season 2. And season 2, he's really, really, really struggling with that. And he's refusing to see a sports psychologist. And there's 2 other guys in the episode who are struggling at the same time as him who do go see sports psychologists. And I'll let you watch the episode to see what happens, but it goes well for 2 of them and 1 it doesn't. And it's like, it kind of just, not saying he needs a psychologist or he's not seeing one or anything like that, but there has to be a level of mental something here that needs help, I think.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, whether it's leaning on the injury, and I'm not suggesting that he's faking his back injury. I don't
No,
want to sound
no,
like
no,
that
no.
at all.
No, no, no. I'm not.
But it is. It's just, it's jarring to see whatever it is, just reason to not play. And I mean, I think the more points your games played, obviously he missed his rookie year because he broke his foot.
Yes.
He landed on that dude's foot in practice. So just a kind of freak injury there. He was one of the most dependable players in the league. He played every game. Like, you talk about the Sixers missing time. Joel was out. Even when Jimmy was there, like, Jimmy's been a player who's missed time over his career. Ben just, he was so dependable night in and night out. That dude was on the floor. And again, just reason number, 60, that this is just so jarring that a number 1 pick is just going to be out of the league. Like, he's unplayable. I truly don't know what happens next. Like, does he play overseas? Is he just totally hanging it up? Like, I don't know. It's tough. Every time it feels like there's been a restart, and it's hard to have any faith in a restart at this point. Like, what?
Yeah.
Anytime you get a glimmer of hope, it's just been snuffed out. Obviously he's not going anywhere. Brooklyn's just stuck with that contract. It is what it is. But after that, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a minimum probably.
I think so too. And so, that's a bummer.
We're heavily incentive laden, to say the least.
For sure. Like games played, probably an injury one here and there. Yeah, for sure. The other injury is Karl Anthony Towns with a torn meniscus. I believe he already went to surgery for it. They said a minimum of a month, but you just had meniscus surgery. So you got to be careful. And you go back to the conversation that we always have. And it's like, all right, where are they in the standings? They got 44 wins right now. They're like 0.0. They're a half game back from the Thunder now for the number 1 spot in the West. Nuggets are kind of creeping up with one game back from them, or half game back from them. But after that, you got like 4-ish wins over the Clippers right now. And then you got the Pelicans at 38 wins. So you do have a little bit of a cushion here where it's like, yeah, you might slip potentially. But also, I think at the end of the day, seeding, as long as you're in the top 4, maybe 5, doesn't necessarily matter as much as being fully healthy going into the playoffs for Karl Anthony Towns specifically.
100%. And I mean, the good thing for them is there's still enough talent where they're not going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Or at least you hope not. I mean, you hope they don't go
Right.
full Sixers and just have totally imploded.
Right.
And first off, by the way, speaking of Timberwolves game, I do have to just point out that Anthony Edwards game-winning block the other night. Holy crap. I mean, his head hit the rim. Like, that dude flew back. And again, winning a game when you need it. Like, you want to talk about every one of those is going to matter. I mean, the good news in terms of the West standings wise is what you talked about, is that there is a pretty fair cushion right now between them and 5. Like, you've got Denver and OKC right there in the mix. The Clippers are only 2.5 back of them too. So you got to kind of factor them around.
Yep.
But they've got, and again, the Pelicans are playing really good right now. The Suns have played better recently, and the Kings are still right there as 7 as well. So I'm not saying they can't catch Minnesota, but at this point in the season, we're 62 games in. I don't think they're going to make up that much ground in the next 20, just because I don't think Minnesota is going to implode that much. The big story here is that they just got to get him back for playoff time. I know Towns has had his struggles, but Minnesota has a very real shot of making a finals run this year. And I guess that's part of where I instantly feel bad for them, is it's like, man, is this franchise cursed or what? They're arguably having their best season ever. And, here goes one of your guys, marquee guys, down. at the end of the year. Now, the good news is with it being meniscus and with him having surgery is that he is expected to be back pretty early in the playoffs. So, I mean, that would bode well. Ideally, if you're Minnesota, again, you have high expectations this year. I mean, I think you're aiming, at least second round. I would say conference finals are bust at this point, given the way that they're seated out right now. But that's always the trick with the play-in, right? Like, look at the play-in right now in the West, and probably that's the curse of playing in the West, right? It's like the play-in right now is Sacramento, Dallas, the Lakers, and the Warriors. I know all of these teams have had their up and downs this year, but you could still see that potentially being a competitive first-round series if the Timberwolves don't have Cat.
You don't want that as a one-game winner-take-all elimination. You don't want that. You don't want that.
I think Minnesota will be fine in that series. Like, I still would favor them to win a first-round playoff series against any of those teams.
Sure.
But it doesn't change the fact, and it doesn't change that if I slip into 3 or 4, then I am running a risk of playing a Pelicans or a Phoenix who are a little more feisty than some of those play-in teams are, in my opinion.
I'm not necessarily confident that the general public would favor them, even though the rankings now should reflect that.
No, they won't, because they're Minnesota. And I get it. Minnesota's been a pretty poor franchise over the year, but this particular Minnesota squad is
they're good.
Like, they can win.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just, if you're up against the Warriors or the Lakers, like,
they still should beat them, though.
I agree, but I think the general public and probably even myself in certain situations going to go, I'm going to put my money on Steph. I'm going to put my money on LeBron. Although Steph, we'll probably talk about it later, has a little bit of an injury, so that could factor in this season. But, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove in a single elimination game, are you going to put your money against LeBron James? I don't know if many
do I think they're getting pushed to 7, though?
I don't know. I don't think so. But if you're in that situation,
I'm hoping that they don't get in a single elimination game.
I don't think so either. But
even I think they've got enough. And I mean, having Gobert here is huge then, right? Like, he can clean up a lot. Like, he's one of the best defensive players in the league this year. Like, one of the bigger narratives this year has been his turnaround and kind of the reinvention of this trade almost, and credit to Rudy.
And I guess the other part would be, then if they only slip to like 4 or 5, then you start looking at, okay, well, who's at 5 or 6, depending on who they would match up against. Like, obviously, if you're the Timberwolves, you'd kind of probably prefer, even though they're rolling, Pelicans over like the Suns and Clippers, probably.
I definitely prefer the Pels over the Clippers. I'm not sure with the Suns, but I get it because, listen, man,
just avoid
if KD and Booker and Beal are going, like, that offense has shown you the ceiling a few times.
Booker hurt his ankle again too. Like that, I know there's a lot of that, but just off the name power, I'm going, look, we don't know what Zion's got. They haven't been in this position before, really either. I'd rather go up against that over a motivated, knows what he's doing KD or whatever this Clippers team is with potentially Westbrook back, depending on, or is he out indefinitely? Did they say broken hand?
I think it's indefinitely for now. I think they were talking about like a month, but I don't think they put a specific time frame on it.
So, but to me, it's like, I would rather just, let's go up against the Pelicans, who also are new at this, for the first time. And I think that's going to be something the Thunder, again, have tried to address, but they'll probably have to deal with that in that first round series. It wouldn't surprise me if the Thunder come out and lose that first game just off of the yips, like, because they haven't done it before. Well, they got a lot of young guys there.
Well, here's the other reality in the West. You're going to have to go through 3 great teams no matter what, probably. Yep. So I don't think there's really any point in matchup hunting. Like, if you're in the Eastern Conference and you're selling me on going up against like Indy or coming to getting healthy against Sixers who are adjusting, or like the Bulls or the Hawks if they get in here somehow,
like Magic 7 or 8. Young.
Well, the Magic I'm assuming are going to be 5 or 4, honestly.
Oh, you're talking about playing? You're talking about playing?
I think the Magic will be out of the play-in, given the way their schedule is. Oh, yeah, the Magic's schedule is like one of the easiest in the league. I think it is the easiest in the league.
It is, yeah. And actually, the Sixers is too, which is a little concerning, considering they're 3-7 in their last 10. But
don't get me started on. I mean, they don't have Maxey right now either, so like I don't have much expectations for them. But like, I really don't want to talk about that team. I just know Tobias Harris has been stealing money for 5 years, and I just can't wait to not watch it anymore. But either way, though, like if I'm Boston, if I'm Cleveland, if I'm Milwaukee, I can talk myself into gaming one of those matchups to really
Sure.
like try to get 7 or 8. There's not that like reprieve in the West. Whoever you're going to get is going to be really good.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just, it's one of those things you have to look at when you're a team that's probably going to take a hit or potentially slide a little bit with
Yeah.
with an injury. But you risk the like let them take a few more games over the get them back now, and then if they get rehurt, then you're
Yeah.
really screwed.
You need Towns if you're going to win a title this year. And so I think you just, again, survive in advance. That's all that matters. And I think the Wolves are still deep enough, obviously,
Yeah.
to be able to survive a first round series. Like I'm not particularly worried about them. Just have it slipping too fall, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like start with the good before the bad. So Justin, I'll start with you this week. Who is balling?
Balling for me is the New York Knicks. Shout out to the Knicks holding the Magic to 74 points, which is the lowest points scored by a team this season. And according to the Reddit post, it's actually the lowest amount scored since 2020, which is wild if that's actually true. I haven't been able to confirm that quite yet.
Uh-huh.
A rough one for the Orlando Magic, and apparently now I'm like the resident Orlando Magic hater because I have to be in the building here. So I'm just like gonna bring it into I'm gonna bring it into the podcast at this.
Your agenda's going to be down pretty bad when they're up at probably the 4 seed. I was going to say with
Yeah.
the Knicks because the Knicks have been sliding a little bit recently
I
with the
know.
injuries, but
I know.
yeah, no, that was obviously a really strong effort against Orlando the other night. That'd be a fun first round series if that's our 4 or 5 matchup. Like I think that would be really entertaining. Again, I lean a little bit Knicks experience there, but
well, and I would say from a Knicks having it last year though, I think Knicks fans would take that pretty hard if they lost to Orlando in round
definitely.
1.
No, they would take it extremely hard, and I can't blame them honestly.
Yeah. So,
but Orlando, I mean, give Orlando credit, man. They're hooping.
Yeah.
And Paulo's going real under the radar. Like he's having
Mm-hmm.
a phenomenal sophomore year. And again, just because I think they're Orlando, and we still know what the reputation is generally around this franchise. Like people are gonna notice, dude.
I will say,
Banchero, I'd say this is a bad bet, dude. You're still in a bad narrative.
I don't want to hate on it. You got Shaq and the guys singing the Orlando Magic song on the TNT halftime show.
Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic.
Dude, so between Chase, between my friend Brad and then Neil, who are all Orlando Magic fans. Every morning, it feels like I go on there and it's another one of the Orlando Magic scoreboard, and then some random like old person like dancing around, and this is the Orlando Magic.
Josh Hart last night said that they had to win that game because he didn't want to get put on the Orlando Magic meme. Like these players know what it is. And shout out to Magic
viral
for leaning into that. That was their OG theme song. So
on TikTok, people were dancing to like it's gone viral. It's become like a thing.
Dude.
Yeah,
I love
it's become a thing.
It's really, really great.
Someone posted the one I saw the most recent from Orlando was they did that, and it was the one when Shaq was DJing in his kitchen with his kids and the one guy. I think it's
going crazy, like a beater in his hand. Like
someone jumps up on the counter and like freaking out. Yeah,
actually hilarious. All right, balling for me is Denver because look out, the defending champs have realized that it's time to start playing meaningful basketball. 7 out of their last 8 wins. Their only loss was to Phoenix in overtime. Their most impressive win coming against Boston on Thursday, 115-109. Jokic phenomenal in that game, 32, 12, and 11. Again, Denver quickly moving up the standings. They're in 3 right now. But, again, come playoff time, and we talked high about Boston last week, and Boston is in the midst of statistically the 5th best regular season of all time, and that's something I wanted to harp on last week because I do think they are the team to beat in the East, and arguably the team to beat this year. But defending champs are still here too, and I think I know it's hard to win back to back, but Denver's ready, man, and it just feels like they're locking in. Coach Mike Malone is obviously great. I trust him playoff time. I'm still high on this team. I think they've got a really good shot to repeat.
Yeah, I agree. I think you see teams do this. It feels like once they win, they kind of like sneak back down. I know like the Heat do this a lot, obviously, where like they kind of they're winning, but like for whatever reason, people are forgetting about them. They're not as flashy, and maybe it's because Jokic is kind of like, I don't know, he's just not that flashy. Like
he hasn't had a quote unquote Jokic season, which is
Right.
hilarious. It's more of just like, no, the last 2
He's
years
good.
he's had a statistical like Wilt Chamberlain game every other game, and this year he's a little more under the radar. Except then, oh by the way, huge regular season game against Boston, and he
Yeah.
goes out and drops 32, 12, and 11. Like,
Yeah.
it's the Joker.
He also, by the way, recently revealed that he's a huge League of Legends player. I don't
Okay.
play, but in his quote, he said, "I'm a top," so that means something, I guess, in the game. I'm not sure.
That can be a lot of things. That can be a lot of things.
He said, "I'm a top, and I play. That's where I play. I'm the direct quote is, I'm a top, and who I am playing right now, I play as your got in Aloy, and I'm going to stay as these two." So there you go.
All right. Who has fallen for you this week?
Maybe that whole statement that I just made.
Just listen. Never mind. I'm biting my tongue. Go ahead. Who you got?
All right. So my fallen is going to go out to Rudy Gobert. He fouled out the other day, and he did the money sign towards the referee, and then got himself a technical. After the game, Rudy Gobert's quote was, "I'll bite the bullet every game. I'll be the bad guy again. That speaks what I think is the truth. Once again, I'll take the fine, but I think it's hurting our game. You know, the betting, all that's becoming bigger and bigger, and it shouldn't feel like it's affecting us that way." So essentially, is suggesting that the referees are influenced by sports betting.
I don't think the refs are influenced by sports betting. I think there is a much longer, nuanced sports betting conversation.
Sure. Yes.
We probably like, and again, I am not anti-gambling. I do not want to sound gambling. I went to Atlantic City a few weeks ago with my friend's bachelor party. I absolutely put a few wagers in. Like,
I get it.
It is really ingrained itself in the fabric of American sports. And I'm a little worried about how much it's ingrained itself, because it does. It creates a potential integrity.
You want to go down a rabbit hole of weirdness that's coming out of Jacksonville with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had an employee steal $22 million.
He's the worst FanDuel player of all time. He blew it all on FanDuel, dude.
He spent $20 million on FanDuel.
They said statistically he's maybe the worst bettor ever.
That's insane.
Like, what were you betting on?
Yeah, that is insane amount of money. At no point FanDuel flagged that. Like $20 million coming through. I mean, come on. But that's a whole nother conversation. You go down that road if you want to. But yeah, so just figured I'd point that out. Rudy Gobert at least starting a conversation that I think will probably happen more and more as sports betting gets bigger and bigger. Like it's about to be, it is legal here in Florida right now. You can only do it through one app. I can't see that lasting very long. So we'll see how long that fight happens. But yeah.
All right, falling for me this week is Steph Curry. It's actually kind of better news, so it's not too severe of a fallen. But it was him, leaving the ankle injury against the Bulls on Thursday. Had an MRI, came back negative. Chris Paul's going to start, might miss a few games. Obviously, for the Warriors, who are fighting in play-in position right now,
don't have time to waste.
Yeah, you don't have any time to waste. But the good news is, again, with Houston falling back so much, I think we're fine. So. But shall we get into Immaculate Grid? We're going to play a speed round of Immaculate Grid.
Yeah, we got to do it. We got to do it fast here. I got to go talk lawyer stuff.
We do, which is extremely ironic that Justin is the one going to talk lawyer stuff and not me. But I love it so much.
When you are full on lawyer and you have your weekend brokerage show, just let me host it. Okay, that's all I ask. That's
100%. But all right, let's do this quick. Again, watch the grid on YouTube. Driving Dish NBA podcast. Our columns this week from left to right: Sixers, 20 points a game per season, 10,000 career rebounds. Our rows from top to bottom: Spurs, Bulls, and MVP. So without any time to waste, Just, you got it. Start off. Where are we going?
Let's just kind of start top left there with the 76ers Spurs.
Okay, obvious one is Danny Green. Less obvious one is Dwayne Dedmon.
I was going to say Thad Young.
Thad Young also works. I like Thad Young. We can do that. Thad Young works for, does he work for Sixers Bulls too, I think?
He might, because then did you say Danny Green?
Yeah, but I trust it. I do it for Spurs. I think it'll be rare there, because I have another Sixers.
Who, you want Thad?
Yeah, let's do Thad there. Why not?
All right, we'll go Thad Young in the Spurs corner, 2%, baby.
Love to see it. All
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Okay. So Sixers Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious one is Kyle Korver.
Mm-hmm.
The less
It
obvious one that I think will get us a better rare score is Isaiah Cannon.
Isaiah Cannon's a good one. The only other options that are coming to my mind would be Drummond? And
Yes,
then
Drummond's there now. Yeah.
oh yeah, Drummond's there now. Okay, so that'll probably be higher. And then did Michael Carter Williams ever end up there, or was that Houston I'm thinking of?
No, he did. I'm pretty sure he did end up there. I think maybe it was like right after.
Although, yeah, Michael Carter Williams.
No, it was after Milwaukee. Yeah, let's do MCW because he did
Did
Rookie of
he?
the Year earlier. So yeah, let's do MCW. I like that. A little 10-year flashback.
Michael Carter Williams, baby.
Definitely
3%. Let's
Nice.
go.
Sixers MVP, obviously Embiid last year. Iverson in 01 is the other one that I was thinking about. I don't know if Wilt ever won it with the Sixers. He won MVP 4 times, so I'm inclined to think he probably won it with the Sixers at least once.
So do we go Harden because you didn't mention him?
Does it have to? But do you have to win it with that team? Is the
I
question.
don't think so.
Regular season MVP since when paired with a team. No, when paired with a team, MVP must be won with that team.
Okay.
So yeah,
And
so
you're right.
Harden would not
Harden
work.
wouldn't work. You're right. Okay. I was trying to. That was my thinking. Is like, let's think of someone who won an MVP not on the Sixers and then did a stint on the Sixers. Like, you know,
dude.
But,
no, the other one who probably who definitely works for the Sixers is Dr. J. Irving definitely works for the Sixers too. He won an MVP. I don't remember if it was in the 70s or early 80s, but I mean, you tell me. Embiid is the one I think will be the rarest, but Embiid, Iverson, and Irving all 100% work, and I'm pretty sure Wilt works too.
You want to go Irving then?
Yeah, let's do Dr. J.
Let's go Irving.
All right.
19%. Okay.
So where I think this will work and pay off is we could do Joel for MVP and 20 points per game per season, because I think Joel will get mad less percentage there because of Irving or him being the number one in the Sixers one.
Let's do that. Yep. 3%. Good call.
Yeah.
So then, do we think Drummond has 1,000 rebounds?
10,000? Yes, definitely.
10,000.
I think we should put him there because I think it'll be rare. Drummond, any rebounding category, like when we talk about Reggie Evans winning rebounding, Drummond is there too. He's one of the best rebounders of all time.
I mean, Tim Duncan's got to work 10,000 rebounds MVP, right? Yep. You want to go Timmy?
Yeah, we can go Tim Duncan for sure.
5%.
And then so 10,000 rebounds for the Spurs, then we should not overthink this and put David Robinson because he's the other. It was going to be him or Tim. So
David B. There he is.
Yeah,
okay.
There we go. The Admiral, the easy one, not really
46. Oh my Lord. Okay.
Him or Tim, I think for everybody. And maybe a lot of people did 20 points a game per season for the Spurs and Tim Duncan.
Do we think DeRozan will be low on the Bulls 20 points per game, or will it be high because he's there?
Well, the highest ones are going to be MJ, and I mean MJ and Scottie Pippen are probably the highest ones, and then I think a lot of people will go Derrick Rose too.
Jimmy might work.
Jimmy definitely will work.
You want to go Jimmy?
I'd go Jimmy.
Jimmy's fun. He's 2 T's, right? No, 1?
Nah, 1.
Okay. All right.
Dude, it gets me every time. Every single time it gets me. All right, Just, let's walk this off. Let's go a little boomer ball. You want to do George Gervin for 20 points a game for the Spurs?
I was going to say George Gervin, or didn't we use him last time for this? What's his name on the Hawks now? Point guard. Murray,
DeJounte
right?
Murray?
I'm pretty sure he's either, I can't remember our conversation. He either averaged like 19.8 points per game or he had it. I can't remember. It was close.
I don't remember either, but I'm also like, if we just used him, I mean, I feel like he had 20 for what it's worth. Like, I would feel confident guessing him.
I think he did. I'm pretty sure we used it for like this exact same scenario.
All right, well, let's see. Do you want to do him or Gervin?
Which one do you think is going to be lower?
Oh, God. I mean, dude, Gervin is a scoring champ, but I don't know people know who George Gervin is, at least younger people.
You want to go
Murray
Gerv?
was just there, but I don't know. People associate him being a scorer, but let's do George Gervin. He's like the top 3 Spurs you always think of. Love to see it. 9 out of 9. I guess it's Gervin, Duncan, and Robinson, even though with Parker and Ginobili there too, maybe a few people.
That's where Duncan was the most used. Interesting.
All right, so most popular, let's run through these quick. Danny Green for Sixers and Spurs. Tim Duncan, 20 per game in the Spurs. David Robinson then for 10K rebounds. Bulls, 10K rebounds. Dennis Rodman. MJ for 28 per season. And Bulls and Sixers, Jimmy Butler. Sixers MVP, Joel. MVP in 20 a game, Kobe. And 10K rebounds and MVP is Shaq. Let's flash back to ours real quick, just to run through them. Spurs and Sixers, Thad Young. Spurs in 20 a game, George Gervin. Spurs 10K rebounds, David Robinson. Bulls and Sixers, Michael Carter Williams. Bulls 20 a game per season, Jimmy Butler. Bulls 10K rebounds, Andre Drummond. Sixers MVP, Julius Erving. MVP with 20 per game per season, Joel Embiid. And MVP with 10,000 rebounds, Tim Duncan.
Nice.
9 for 9. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this special edition of the Driving Dish NBA podcast, the 10th anniversary. Rock out with us as we're headed here into year number 11. The pod isn't slowing down, so we hope you enjoyed this episode. You'll keep on listening, or if this is your first one, thank you. And we hope you continue to listen. Leave us a review on iTunes. Go to Battle, read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
And find us on YouTube. You got a video version of the podcast there. Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube.